In a world where strength is measured by claws and blood, silence is mistaken for weakness. This is the story of a woman who never shifted. A Luna who was mocked. A wife who was betrayed. And a power the world was not yet ready to witness. Eloan was born beneath a full moon that refused to set. The elders whispered it was an omen. The pack dismissed it as coincidence. By 16, wolves shifted for the first time. By 18, they trained. By 20, they led. Eloan was 23. She had never shifted. The moon had watched every year pass. It watched again as Eloan stepped onto the training grounds. Morning light spilled across packed earth, catching on moving bodies and flashing claws. Wolves sparred in tight circles and loose pairs, laughter breaking out between strikes, confidence carried easily in their voices. Power was never hidden here. It was displayed. Celebrated. Feared. Eloan stood at the edge of the clearing, as she always did. Not because anyone told her to stay there, but because standing among them felt like stepping into a story she was never meant to finish. She watched quietly. Silver-white hair pulled back. Posture straight. Hands resting loosely at her sides. She wasn't afraid. Fear was loud. What she felt was quieter. Heavier. Like something pressing against her ribs, waiting. They noticed her quickly. They always did. At first, the looks came. Then the murmurs. Then the laughter that no longer bothered to stay low. Someone asked if she was waiting for instructions. Someone else laughed and said she must enjoy watching what she could never do. Another voice added that it had been years, far too many years, for someone still waiting on her first shift. The word week drifted through the air like dust. A few wolves glanced toward the raised platform where Alpha Kalen stood, overseeing the session. They waited. For correction. For order. For defense. Alpha Kalen's gaze passed over Eloan once. Then he looked away. No command followed. The laughter grew bolder. Eloan felt it then, a tightening in her chest, a brief hitch in her breath. Her fingers curled slightly at her side before she forced them still. She exhaled slowly. She did not move. She had learned early that reacting only made things worse. Silence, at least, allowed her to keep her dignity. A pair of younger wolves sparred closer than necessary. One let his claws extend just enough to show control, glancing at her with a lazy smile. "Careful," he said lightly. "You might scare her." Laughter followed. Eloan's gaze remained steady, though the moon above seemed brighter than before, pale light brushing her skin. She wondered, again, why her body never answered the moon the way others did. Why patience seemed to be the only thing she had ever been given in excess. She had been told to wait. So she did. When the training session ended, wolves gathered in small clusters, voices overlapping, energy high. Some avoided her gaze. Others watched her too closely, unsettled by the calm she never lost. No one approached her. She turned away without being dismissed. The pack house rose ahead of her, stone walls cool and imposing. Inside, the air was quieter, but no warmer. Moonlight filtered through high windows as she moved through the halls, footsteps barely echoing. Voices carried from the central chamber, firm, familiar, authoritative. She paused briefly at the doorway, not to listen, but out of habit. Strength. Reputation. Appearances. The conversation stopped the moment she entered. Lady Varel lifted her gaze, already disapproving. "You're late." Eloan lowered her head slightly and explained she had been at the training grounds. A pause followed. Watching again? Eloan didn't answer. There was nothing she could say that hadn't already been decided for her. Nearby, Alpha Kalen stood with rigid posture, eyes fixed somewhere past her shoulder. He did not look at her. Did not acknowledge her presence. His silence settled heavily in her chest. The moon outside the window reflected faintly in the polished floor, pale and distant. Eloan excused herself quietly and moved on. Behind her, the conversation resumed as if she had never entered at all. Inside the pack house, the cruelty sharpened. Lady Varel watched Eloan the way one watches a flaw in stonework, something that ruined the design but could not be easily removed. "You move too softly," she said one morning, eyes cold. "A Luna should be seen." Eloan inclined her head, respectful. "I try not to disturb the household." Lady Varel scoffed. "A household survives disturbance. It does not survive weakness." She spoke often of lineage, of blood, of what the pack deserved. Never of Eloan. When guests visited, Eloan was corrected publicly. Her posture adjusted. Her words interrupted. Her presence tolerated, never welcomed. "You wear the title," Lady Varel told her once, voice low and precise, "but you will never deserve my son." Eloan swallowed the familiar ache and said nothing. If Lady Varel's cruelty was cold, Lyra's was sharp. She never pretended politeness. "You embarrass us," Lyra said one afternoon, blocking Eloan's path in the corridor. "Do you know what people say when you're not around?" Eloan met her gaze calmly. "I can imagine." Lyra laughed, humorless. "No, you can't. If you could, you'd leave." She leaned closer. "A Luna who can't shift isn't patient. She's useless." Then she stepped aside, as if Eloan were no longer worth blocking. The words followed Eloan long after the corridor emptied. And then there was Alpha Kalen. What hurt most wasn't what he said. It was what he didn't. At meals, he sat across from her without meeting her eyes. In meetings, he spoke past her, or not at all. Decisions were made around her, never with her. Once, late at night, moonlight spilling across the stone floor, she asked quietly if she had done something wrong. He looked at her for a long moment, expression tight, distant. "You complicate things." That was all. So Eloan learned to be small without shrinking. She walked softly. She spoke carefully. She endured. She told herself patience was strength. That kindness would outlast cruelty. But every full moon, something inside her pressed back. Not anger. Not fear. Something vast. Something waiting. The moon watched. Lyra avoided her after that. Not out of shame. Out of dismissal. She passed her in corridors without acknowledgement. Spoke of her as if she were no longer present. The cruelty didn't soften, it sharpened, precise and careless. Eloan learned not to stand in her way. Then one night, the forest answered first. The moon was high, pale light filtering through branches as the pack dispersed after evening patrols. Eloan lingered near the edge of the grounds, drawn by a restlessness she never quite understood. A sound reached her from deeper in the trees. Not a howl. A gasp. Sharp. Broken. Cut short too quickly. Eloan froze. She listened again. There it was, unmistakable now. Pain. Fear. A struggle being lost. She didn't call for help. She didn't think. She moved. Branches tore at her sleeves as she ran. The forest thickened, the ground uneven beneath her feet, moonlight guiding her through shadow and root. She burst into a small clearing washed in silver. Lyra lay on the ground. Blood darkened her clothes. One leg twisted at an angle that made Alolan's stomach drop. Her breath came in shallow, panicked bursts, eyes wide and unfocused. She had been attacked. Alolan dropped to her knees without hesitation. "It's me. You're not alone." Lyra tried to push herself up and failed, a sharp cry tearing from her throat. "Don't move," Alolan said gently. "Please." She tore fabric from her sleeve, hand steady despite the way her heart raced. She pressed it against the wound, applying pressure the way she had seen healers do, by watching, because she was never allowed to practice. Lyra stared at her, disoriented. "Why are you here?" Alolan didn't stop working. "Because you're hurt. You should have left me," Lyra whispered. "Someone stronger would have come." Alolan met her gaze, eyes calm in the moonlight. "Strength isn't who arrives first. It's who stays." They waited together until help came. Alolan kept pressure on the wound. Kept Lyra awake. Kept her breathing steady. When the patrol finally arrived, Alolan stepped back silently, hands stained with blood that was not her own. No one thanked her. Not then. Lyra was carried away without looking back. Alolan returned to the pack grounds alone. But something had shifted. In the days that followed, Lyra no longer blocked Alolan's path. She didn't apologize. She didn't soften. But when others laughed, she didn't join in. When someone spoke too loudly about weakness, she said nothing, and that silence carried weight. Once, in passing, their eyes met. Lyra hesitated. Then nodded. Just once. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was acknowledgement. And for Alolan, that was enough. The evening the pack gathered in the great hall, the moon hung low and full beyond the high windows. Alolan stood near the edge, hands folded, gaze lowered. Then the doors opened. Footsteps echoed against stone, confident, unhurried. She felt the shift in the room before she saw it. Alpha Kalen entered with another woman at his side. Seraphine. Seraphine moved as if the space already belonged to her. Her eyes swept the room and landed on Alolan almost immediately. She smiled. So this is her. The hall fell silent. I imagined someone, stronger. Uneasy laughter followed. Alolan said nothing. Seraphine stepped closer, circling slowly. No scent of power, she observed lightly. No wolf aura. She stopped directly in front of Alolan. How did you ever convince an alpha to choose you? Alolan turned her head, not toward Seraphine, but past her. Toward Alpha Kalen. Their eyes met for a heartbeat. She searched his face. For the smallest defense. For anything. His expression hardened. Then he looked away. Dismissive. Irritated. As if she were something he was tired of explaining. The moonlight beyond the windows flared brighter, unnoticed. The silence answered everything. Seraphine noticed. She smiled wider. Don't worry, she said softly. I'll take very good care of him. She straightened, letting her voice carry. Someone has to give this pack a real Luna. Alolan lifted her eyes. There was no anger there. No pleading. Only calm. I hope, she said quietly, that you never learn what it costs to speak like that. Seraphine laughed. Still pretending she matters. She took Alpha Kalen's arm and walked away. The hall emptied slowly. Afterward, Lyra approached her, hesitant. You didn't deserve that. Eloin turned, offering a faint smile. I know. If you don't want to be alone, Lyra said carefully. Thank you, Eloin replied. Truly. But I need some time. The forest, she added gently. Lyra nodded. Be careful. Eloin smiled once more and walked away. 3 nights later, beneath another full moon, the truth was spoken aloud. Before the entire pack, Alpha Kalen stood holding Seraphine's hand and declared her his true mate. The bond shattered. Not loudly. Not violently. Cleanly. Eloin felt it tear through her chest like glass breaking in slow motion. The pain was sharp, undeniable, but she did not scream. She turned and walked away. Into the forest. The moon rose high overhead, silver and unyielding. Eloin stopped where the trees thinned and the sky opened wide. She fell to her knees. I gave everything, she whispered. Why was I never enough? The wind stilled. The forest went silent. The moonlight brightened. And for the first time, it did not turn away. That was when the night answered. Eloin did not know how long she walked. Time loosened its grip deeper in the forest. Moonlight slipped between branches in uneven patterns, shadows stretching and breaking beneath her feet. She didn't care where she was going. She just needed to be gone. She stopped only when her legs could no longer carry her. The ground was damp beneath her knees as she sank down, breath shaking for the first time that night. Her hands curled into the fabric of her dress, knuckles whitening as her forehead touched the earth. This was where the tears came. Not loud. Not dramatic. Silent. I tried, she whispered into the dark. I tried so hard. It had been 7 days since Eloin vanished. 7 days since the Luna's chambers went untouched. 7 days since the training grounds had one less quiet witness. Lady Varel noticed first. Not because she missed her. Because the house felt lighter. The leech is gone, she said one morning, smoothing her sleeves as servants passed. Some things correct themselves on their own. Seraphine stood beside Alpha Kalen, relaxed and confident, like she'd always belonged there. Lady Varel's approval, so carefully withheld from Eloin, came easy now. You suit this house, she said. You understand strength. The pack needs stability, Seraphine replied smoothly. Not fragility. Alpha Kalen said nothing. He stared toward the forest line beyond the grounds, jaw tight, expression unreadable. Lady Varel mistook it for burden. Don't look so weighed down, she snapped. You were weakened by her presence. Seraphine's hand rested lightly on Alpha Kalen's arm. You're free now, she said softly. Free to be who they need you to be. Alpha Kalen didn't pull away. The pack adjusted. Not to Eloin's absence. To her replacement. Alpha Kalen didn't hide Seraphine. He displayed her. Council meetings. Patrol briefings. Public walks along the border. It looked like a powerful alliance. Seraphine spoke where Eloin had listened. She sharpened tensions where Eloin had softened them. Wolves began to flinch when corrected. Injuries were dismissed as weakness. Exhaustion became expectation. Strength, Seraphine called it. Lyra called it what it was. Control. And then the nights changed. Whispers at the edges of the territory. Shadows moving where no pack member stood. The forest itself seemed unsettled, like an animal forced too close to fire. One evening, Lyra followed Seraphine. Not out of curiosity. Out of instinct. Near the old boundary stones, Seraphine met a figure cloaked in darkness. The woman's presence felt wrong, hollow, hungry. Lyra held her breath as the witch smiled. "The Alpha trusts me," Seraphine said calmly. "The pack bends when I speak." And soon, the witch replied, voice smooth as oil, "They will break." Lyra's blood ran cold. "This pack took my sister from me," the witch continued. "I will take everything from them." Seraphine didn't hesitate. Lyra backed away before she could be seen, heart pounding. This wasn't politics. This was vengeance.